Great to have your company on another episode of SpInk. You know what the show is all about. It's all about books, sports books in particular. It is also about movies, sports movies in particular as well. So we thought we'll go around the country, just have a look at a few of those books that have hit the markets fairly recently and give you an idea, a perspective, a bit of an opinion as to how they are for a read on a leisurely Saturday evening or a Sunday evening. So why wait? Let's get started. So what's it that we have on the show tonight? We've got a wide variety for you tonight on the show, from cricket to tennis to even boxing. Bhiwani Junction is where we will start with. We'll get across to a bit of cricket featuring Rahul Dravid and some of the fine literature about Rahul Dravid. A bit about Brett Lee and his love for India, and then let's cross over to football probably while we talk about Spain's road to world domination. And then we stay put with Spain, but a different sport. Rafa Nadal is what we'll be focusing on. And we'll also listen to Farhan Akhtar's experience and how it felt to enact the role of the flying Sikh, Milkha Singh. Okay, boxing is where we will start the show with. It's quite evident that I am not a boxer, but the fact of the matter is I love boxing and therefore would want to read a few books about boxing, particularly about Indian boxing. So I went around searching for a few of those books that would cover the likes of Akhil Kumar or Vijender Singh, and I made sure that I spoke to one of my friends who's also the author of this particular book, named Bhiwani Junction. It's not a bad one at that. Maybe we'll first listen in to Shamya Dasgupta as to what he has to say about this book and what prompted him really to write this piece of literature.
Boxing has been a sport that I've followed very closely over the years. I love the sport, and as a reporter, I've reported on Indian boxing and Indian boxers for a long time. And it seemed that after Beijing 2008, not just Beijing 2008, but lots of stories that developed around Vijender Singh's achievement in 2008. There were lots of stories that needed to be told. It was almost like there was a revolution of sorts that was taking place in India, specifically in Haryana, and more specifically in Bhiwani. So it was a story that I felt needed to be told. The setting was already there. It's almost like one of these films you see set in Uttar Pradesh or Haryana or Bihar, that belt. So the setting was obviously very interesting. Everyone I approached was interested in making the book happen, and absolutely everyone gave me the time I wanted and answered every question I wanted them to.
So right, that's exactly what prompted Shamya to write a book about boxing. So here are my thoughts about what boxing and Shamya is all about. As far as the readers are concerned, they'll find it extremely lucid, to say the least. It's very free-flowing. It's wonderful for a Saturday evening or a Sunday evening. It gives you a perspective as to how and why Bhiwani is really the epicenter of boxing in India. He's gone into a bit of a history as well. He's traversed the distances. He's talked about Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai being one of the cream centers of boxing in India. But maybe at some portions, really, I mean, the book delves a little bit deeper into Vijender Singh, and maybe at some levels it also looks like a bit of a biography of Vijender Singh. But overall, it's a neat little read for a nice Sunday evening. Maybe we'll look at that book and say, I looked at that book and said, maybe out of 5, I would probably give it a 3 out of 5. So that's Bhiwani Junction in a nutshell for you. Right, let's move on to the next of those books that we are focusing right here on SpInk. It is about Rahul Dravid all the way. It is not an autobiography, it is not a biography, but it is a collection of writings about Rahul Dravid, the finest number 3 batsman that India has ever seen.
That's his 50. Just at a time when India required it.
book is a must-read if you're a fan of Rahul Dravid. Even if you're not a fan of Rahul Dravid, you must make sure that you go through this book because of a couple of aspects. Fine piece of writing by different people from different walks of life. You've had a few journalists who have written extensively about Rahul Dravid, their thoughts, their opinions about one of the finest number 3 batsmen that India has ever produced. A bit of perspective from domestic cricketers about the kind of preparation Rahul Dravid has before he pads up and goes into bat. A bit of a perspective coming through from Sanjay Bangar, who was a part of that famous Headingley test in England where India famously beat England in England. So he talks volumes about how Rahul Dravid is as a person in the dressing room just before he gets into bat. And also a bit of a perspective from his opponents, namely Jason Gillespie, who talks a lot about how bored sometimes he gets bowling those deliveries to Rahul Dravid. And finally, there's also a nice little tribute that has been paid to Rahul, the person, the cricketer, by a former great in Greg Chappell.
Greg said about Rahul, he became an excellent player because he had thought it through and worked out what he needed to do to succeed. His success did not come by accident, nobody's does, I guess, and it wasn't just about hard work. He was an extremely skillful player who never stopped trying to improve himself. If he thought he could get better at something, he analyzed what he needed to do and then worked hard at making the improvement.
People like Greg are people in some ways who've grown up with this game. You know, they talk the game, they discuss the game. He's the kind of personality who's grown up in an era of Australian cricket where they would play the game and sit back at the end of the day and spend hours at the bar discussing the game, talking the game. So there was a lot there that he could offer, in terms of knowledge from his experiences of having played the game so much. He was a great batsman himself. I mean, he was an absolutely brilliant batsman. So he knew batting. He'd understood batting. He'd taken the trouble to actually understand batting. There was a lot that he could offer. And, there was a lot that he could help young kids with and play.
Yeah. It's always a captain's team, isn't it? It's never a coach's team. It's always a captain's team. There's an impression that it was as much or maybe more Greg Chappell's team than Rahul Dravid's team. Did you go along with that at all times, or did you think, no, it was my team?
No, it was my team. It was always my team. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Because Greg was a strong personality and because he was himself a great cricketer and because of the fanfare and the publicity that came with whatever he did, and at times it could always overshadow the impression that, it was his team more than my team or our team or the Indian team. And I think that's the nature of the person. He's the kind of person that can polarize opinions at times. He's a strong personality. He comes across like that. But no, I always felt that it was my team. I was very happy with things and the way they went.
And it's not just cricket. There's also an insight into Rahul Dravid as a man outside the cricket field with his proud wife Vijayta, and she's written a piece on her better half as well. It's a great collector's item. It surely deserves a rating of about, 4 out of 5. So that's Rahul Dravid for you. I reiterate, it's all for Rahul Dravid's fans, and it's also for people who don't necessarily admire the way Rahul Dravid goes out to bat. But if you want to understand the mind of a champion, probably you need to get across to this book. Right, let's get away from fine number 3 batsman. Let's get across to a tearaway fast bowler in Brett Lee. And let's quickly figure out what he's got to say about his life and times.
This book is not just yet another sports book, but it will take you beyond cricket and the bizarre ups and downs and everything in between of being a sports person and an entertainer. I hope you enjoy reading it as much as I enjoyed writing it.
You can almost sense Brett Lee smiling all the way as he was writing down this particular book. Maybe on one of those occasions where he has talked a little bit about the Monkeygate scandal that really terrorized the relationships between India and Australia as cricketing superpowers. Interestingly, he takes he doesn't really talks so much against Harbhajan Singh in that particular section of this book. But he starts off wonderfully well, and the foreword is written by Alan Donald, one of the finest batsmen that we know of. He's also talked about how his perceptions about Graeme Smith changed gradually. He's also talked about some funny incidents from that Australian dressing room, especially when Shane Warne was out again for 99, this time against New Zealand. So a few lovely funny anecdotes that he gives amidst the Monkeygate scandal that he goes on to describe. But besides that, of course, he has talked volumes about his love for India and why he loves getting here time and again. His love for music obviously plays a part in it as well. If there is a downside about this Brett Lee's book, it is only about how big or how voluminous this book turns out to be sometimes. Maybe things could have wrapped up in about 250 pages or about 275 to 300, but otherwise it's a nice, beautiful read, relaxed one at that. Not so much if you're looking out for controversies, because you know Brett Lee's that kind of person, so you don't expect too much of those controversies anyway emanating from that particular book. Right. As far as the rating is concerned, I would probably go in with 3 out of 5 for Brett Lee. Okay, time now to head into a very quick break. We've spoken enough about cricket right here on SportsInk. When we come back, we'll take a look at the beautiful game.